Carl Jung once said, "The primary task of childhood is to lay the foundation for the development of personality." When that process is distorted by external pressures, the true self becomes obscured. So, what does it really mean to grow up as a good kid? It means being the one who follows the rules, constantly seeks approval, and rarely expresses personal wants, desires, or frustrations. This good kid quickly learns to repress feelings, emotions, and needs for the sake of harmony. While this behavior might seem positive, it often leads to subtle, yet significant, consequences in adulthood, emerging as dissatisfaction, anxiety, and a vague, inner discomfort that's hard to identify. Adapting to others' expectations may seem harmless, but as Jung explains, the cost of hiding the true self to meet an externally created ideal is the alienation of essential parts of one's psyche. These aspects of our essence are pushed into what Jung called the shadow, or the unconscious. The person begins to live according to an imposed ideal, halting the process of individuation, the full development of one's personality. Being a good kid often acts as a form of self-protection, a strategy to avoid conflict or punishment. But what happens when this mask hardens into a rigid behavioral pattern in adult life? This video will explore how behaviors shaped by the need to please others can hinder self-discovery, especially when internal demands, desires, talents, even repressed anger, find no space for expression. With this in mind, we'll investigate how the good kid role can limit personal growth, leaving someone disconnected from their true self, trapped in a life driven by must-do rather than want-to. This is an invitation to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that good kid mentality still lives within you? And what's the psychological cost of maintaining this image? Ready to explore the roots of this good behavior and its impact on adult life? The dynamics of being a good kid are deeply woven into our socialization and the development of our psyche. For Jung, the human psyche seeks a balance between internal and external forces. When a child grows under constant pressure to be good, pleasing, and compliant, they learn to adopt a false self, a concept later developed by Donald Winnicott, akin to what Jung called the persona. The persona is the mask we wear to adapt and be accepted by society. But the risk is that this mask becomes the only face we recognize. The good kid, prioritizing others' expectations, begins to stray from the path of individuation, which Jung describes as the process of discovering and integrating one's true essence and identity. This journey requires us to embrace both the dark and light aspects of our personality, and for the good kid, the shadow can hold a buildup of repressed anger, suppressed desires, and denied aspirations. The adult who emerges from this dynamic constantly feels the need to meet others' expectations, paying the price of living disconnected from their inner self. According to Jung, the shadow contains everything we repress for not aligning with the ideal image we try to project. For the good kid, the shadow often holds feelings of frustration, self-criticism, anger, and even a kind of shame for not being enough. They strive to remain worthy of love and acceptance by following rules and norms, but in doing so, they repress their potential for an authentic life. Jung suggests that true freedom and fulfillment only come when we embrace our shadow, for it holds the repressed energy that, once acknowledged, can be transformed into creative and assertive strengths. The inability to express true feelings imposed since childhood leaves deep marks. Adults who were once good kids often struggle to set boundaries, as they never learned to say no. They may also find it hard to handle criticism and rejection, as their self-esteem was built on external validation rather than genuine self-acceptance. This cycle of self-sabotage, where the individual prioritizes others' expectations over their own desires, only takes them further from their authentic self. When we ignore our internal needs and repress our true self, the unconscious begins to reveal these desires through symptoms, ranging from anxiety to more serious disturbances. To better understand how being a good kid impacts adult life, let's look at a few practical scenarios that illustrate these consequences. Imagine Anna, a woman who, from a young age, learned that being good meant avoiding conflict and pleasing everyone. In her family, any sign of dissatisfaction was quickly suppressed. Over the years, Anna developed an extraordinary ability to read others' expectations and adapt to them, almost like a chameleon. At work, she's the model employee who takes on all tasks, even when they stretch her beyond her limits. In her relationships, she's afraid of displeasing her partner, always putting his needs before her own. The result? Anna feels overwhelmed, anxious, and at times undervalued. She knows she needs to set boundaries, but whenever she tries, she feels intense anxiety, as if she's violating a core rule of her existence. This scenario is common among people conditioned from childhood to associate love and acceptance with obedience and subservience. Anna lives for others, but her repressed anger, and feelings of emptiness emerge as symptoms of a life disconnected from her true self. Deep down, she fears that if she expresses what she really feels, she'd be rejected or seen as selfish. Her psyche has developed a form of self-defense. She believes that to be loved, she must be useful and invisible at the same time. Another example is Carlos, a middle-aged man praised from childhood for his calmness and kindness. He never showed opposition, and as a teenager, he continued being the good boy of the family, which particularly pleased his parents. Yet, as an adult, Carlos struggles to assert himself at work. When colleagues interrupt or dismiss his opinions, he doesn't react. His frustration builds, but he suppresses any urge to express his feelings, fearing he'll be seen as aggressive or inappropriate. As a result, he constantly feels undervalued and experiences a profound sense of powerlessness. Instead of finding personal fulfillment at work, he carries the weight of self-doubt and often directs anger at himself for not being strong enough. These examples show how, by internalizing the good kid role, adults become limited in their ability to form healthy relationships, both personally and professionally. The fear of displeasing others manifests in their difficulty expressing what they truly think and feel, which over time becomes a psychological prison. They feel as though they live for others without ever expressing their true selves. But how can one break this pattern and reclaim what was repressed? Reclaiming the true self, a journey of self-acceptance and shadow integration to reconnect with the true self. A deep process of self-acceptance and shadow integration is essential. The shadow, those parts of ourselves that we repress out of fear of disappointing others or not meeting expectations, holds the unexpressed aspects of who we are. According to Jung, the unconscious holds these hidden pieces of our psyche, waiting for the moment to be recognized and integrated. For the good kid who lived to please, these repressed elements often include the ability to say no, to express frustrations, and even to pursue personal dreams and desires. Integrating the shadow means acknowledging and accepting the parts of ourselves that were left behind. It's a delicate task, as it requires the individual to question deeply held beliefs, like the idea that they don't deserve love unless they're perfect or helpful. This rediscovery process, which Jung calls individuation, is vital for a more authentic and fulfilling life. Through individuation, a person begins to shed the masks they've created to adapt to the external world and starts to explore what they truly feel, think, and desire. Here, they connect with their inner self, discovering that genuine fulfillment doesn't come from pleasing others, but from living in alignment with their own truth. This journey is challenging. Those who embark on it often feel internal resistance. Leaving behind the good kid role can mean facing guilt or fear of rejection. But this resistance is a reflection of years of conditioning. Through therapy, introspection, and self-compassion, it's possible to welcome these feelings without judgment and gradually transform the shadow into a source of strength and authenticity. The concept of the collective unconscious is also relevant here. Many of the patterns we follow aren't merely personal, they're cultural. Society often values certain traits, like obedience and kindness, while suppressing others, like self-sufficiency and assertiveness. This means that stepping away from the good kid role is also a collective challenge, as it goes against cultural expectations. Jung believed that by integrating our shadow, we also help transform society. Each person who becomes more authentic inspires others to be true to themselves. The individuation process demands courage, but it's also liberating. Over time, individuals discover they don't need to meet everyone's expectations to be worthy of love and respect. They begin to develop a new sense of self-worth based on who they truly are rather than who others expect them to be. Shadow integration is the first step to this freedom, as it contains qualities that once seemed unacceptable but, when embraced, allow for a fuller, more genuine life. Throughout our lives, many of us carry the marks of being that good kid. Initially adopted as a way to protect ourselves or gain acceptance, this role can turn into a silent prison, limiting our expression and obscuring our true essence. However, as Jung teaches, we have the power to reclaim the authentic self and live a life that is truly ours. The first step on this journey is recognizing that being good is not the same as being whole or authentic. Integrity comes from balancing external expectations with our own needs, values, and feelings. Acknowledging the parts of ourselves we've repressed, like anger, frustration, or even sadness, is a fundamental task. By allowing these feelings to surface, we make room for our true essence to find expression, which requires constant self-compassion and the understanding that we don't need to be perfect to be loved and accepted. Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." This phrase captures the pursuit of self-knowledge and the liberation from the rigid roles we assume throughout life. By diving into individuation, we start to free ourselves from the bonds of the good kid and awaken to the potential of being whole. This journey of self-discovery teaches us to accept not only our virtues but also our flaws and shadows. And this acceptance gives us the freedom to be genuine, allowing our lives to become a truer expression of who we really are. It's essential to remember that this liberation process is gradual, and with each step, we find both new challenges and new strengths. True transformation begins when we stop seeking external validation and begin to build self-esteem based on authenticity and personal responsibility. We become able to say no when necessary, to express our feelings honestly, and to establish healthy boundaries in our relationships. It's in this moment that we experience true freedom, the freedom to live in harmony with our soul. Finally, acknowledging that we were once a good kid isn't about self-condemnation. Rather, it's about recognizing that we did the best we could with the tools we had. Now, however, we have the opportunity to transform, to integrate everything we've been, and to allow our true essence to flourish. Individuation is a long journey, but each step brings us closer to a life lived in peace with who we are. The question is, are you ready to stop being the good kid and allow your true self to speak? This is your invitation to liberation and self-discovery.